We've still got to talk about AEW from this last week. So what did we say? 24 hours is how long that Halloween Havoc by NXT held the record for the worst Halloween-themed pro wrestling program. How about that? It lasted 24 hours until AEW said, "Hold my ghost."
At the end. They didn't lead you to believe it was going to be like that throughout the show, and then by the end of the show, it went complete NXT.
Completely. Well, it went complete AEW. This, I mean, we won't spoil by jumping to the end, but no matter what you can say about NXT, the WWE, Vince McMahon, or anybody involved, they would have never done something this completely unprofessional. And, anyway. But we started strong. Right out of the gate again. Like Mussolini! But he didn't have a partner. It was clobbering time. We had the music. We had the signs. We had the chants. It was big time stuff. Here comes CM Punk. And he's going to wrestle Bobby Fish, which makes sense because he's the one that ran Fish off, last Friday night when he was beating up and roughing up that young man that he had already defeated. And CM Punk wasn't going to stand for it. So there's a reason for this. And there's a heel and a baby face. And they're both professionals, serious professionals. And they're up first. Great way to start. Jim Ross had something to call. Did you notice he actually sounded like he was not only interested, but that he actually could call some type of wrestling strategy like he did in the old days, because they were actually doing something worth calling. Fish is aggressive. Punk gets pops from body slams because the way he places them and the way he paces his match. Fish got heat and Punk fought from underneath. He hit one good-looking dive. In the middle of the heat, Punk didn't even make a comeback. He clotheslined him over the top and hit one good-looking dive and got big chance. But then Fish took back over and worked the leg. They went to the floor briefly to get the fucking point across. And then Fish actually broke the count. Imagine that. And then went out and got him and got back in the ring. And was all over Punk's leg. There was a spot where they were fighting on the ropes and Punk knocked Fish off and hit an elbow off the top. And honestly, it looked a little awkward. I think Fish landed or positioned himself straight out with his feet towards the buckle and his head far away. I don't know how that was going to work, but Punk modified. But they traded the forearms on the knees. Both guys were selling. And then finally Punk made his big comeback, but he still sold the effects of the heat. He was still limping. And then Fish foiled the go to sleep as Punk went for it, but Punk jackknifed him. They got the double bridge in. And then Punk hit the go to sleep. 1, 2, 3, or was it? This was confusing because I think it stepped on the pop because Fish kicked out a fraction of a second after the 3 count to the point where I was thinking that were they trying to make it where it was 1, 2, 3 and he kicked out, but it just a fraction of a second too late as they called. The announcers called it that way. But in honest to God, the way that he kicked out that quick, it looked like he was trying to beat the count, and Punk kind of looked at the referee like, was that it? So I'm not sure. It was confusing, but the way they did it stepped a little bit on the pop on the 1, 2, 3. That's what I mean. What did you see?
I didn't think too much of the kick out. It seemed a little late if they were going to do that, but the look to the referee was what made me think either something happened or they're trying to make us think something happened. The booking of Punk's been interesting because we brought up the guys he's been wrestling on TV in competitive matches. And now it's competitive matches that he's having a difficult time winning.
Yeah.
So obviously this is part of a bigger story. I'm curious where this is going to go.
He's having actually like a clinic match. Every match that he has is different. It's tailored to the opponent, whether he's wrestling a nominal babyface or a full-fledged heel or whatever, whether he's got the underneath guy, Daniel Garcia, but with the Stooges at ringside to interfere, or whether it's just one guy like Fish. Everything means something. The matches are logical. They don't bury the referee. They don't do any of the bad habit things that we constantly malign most of the, the people on this roster for, that don't have any boundaries or structure in their matches. So they're perfect. It's like you can learn how to work from watching these matches. The question is, should a star of the level of CM Punk not only be wrestling this often on free television to make it in people's minds routine, but should it be this competitive? And, Fish, he just looks good and he can get the shit across. But when you're taking the body of work into account, should he have been competitive this much with all these guys when you've still got guys farther up on the pecking order? Since the matches are so good, it's hard to fault that. I think the bigger thing is, it's just that he's wrestling often enough now that it's becoming routine before we get to the meat of the matter, the main event guys. That's what I think maybe, the issue that I might have is not that he's having matches this competitive, because he still wins and they're all great. They're all logical, but it's also now, again, August 20th. We didn't know whether August 19th, is CM Punk ever going to wrestle again? By not even November 1st, well, boy, we've seen him a lot lately. That's what I worry about. Anyway, I'll say that again. But then again, I'm just trying to figure out who would be the best main event level guy right now for Punk to get involved with. And I'm not sure I know, because I'm not sure I know who I can trust these days. After the main event, I really don't know who I can trust. Who?
I know what the answer is.
Who? What?
If you really wanted to do something and do some business and make it really good and not have to burn guys out with matches, because you could do promos every week and keep it fresh and interesting and people would be dying to see the match on a pay-per-view, Punk and heel Cody. That's the fucking ticket. Cody, full-blown heel with his wife, goes back on the stipulation. That's the perfect opponent for Punk.
Well, but now, then you'd have to have both of those guys cooperating to do that. And we'll hear later on that one of them has no intention of giving the people what they want.
That's true.
So Malachi Black did a spooky promo in backstage somewhere in the black, but after seeing him groveling and slobbering on Cody on the reality show, thanking him for putting him over and giving him this opportunity, and I'm so unworthy, I'm not as intimidated by this guy as I used to be. Because now I know that he's the same as all the rest of them. He's just happy to be there and he's doing what he's told. Thanks to the reality show, I know that. They hadn't made that clear on the wrestling program, which is why that people were interested in this guy. But now that they've made it clear that he's as phony as a football bat like the rest of them, I'm not as intimidated by him. So I'm glad we got that reality show for 5 miserable weeks. I must admit, I got 3 cards in the mail over the last couple of months, all with "ha" on them. And one guy wanted me to autograph my action figure. Ha! Anyway, the next match was MJF versus Bryce Donovan. It only took 2 years, but now MJF gets wins on TV over nobodies in quick fashion. Handshake, gut kick, turnbuckle, hit his finish, 1, 2, 3. And now he gets to talk. Perfect. Perfect. It would have been great if he'd have done that the first, 8 or 12 weeks in a row that we'd seen him a couple of years ago, but better late than never. But now it was promo time. Boston is a shithole. He shared that with us. He would rather shove his junk in a blender than go near a disgusting fat Bostonian woman. You know what he should have used? He should have used my Tupelo line. Brian, you know what you get when you cross a pig with a woman from Boston.
What's that?
Nothing. There's some things even a pig won't do. But anyway, then he cuts the promo on Darby Allin. And I started thinking right as he was doing this, where's Brian Pillman Jr.? They started using Brian so he could give MJF a win. But the idea behind pushing the young babyface that's been featured in a sympathetic role on a widely regarded television program is after the heel beats him, you bring him back the next week or two and rehabilitate him by giving him some wins. You don't leave the people's, or leave the last taste the people got of him. Yeah, he got beat and disappeared. But anyway, now that MJF has finished Darby off, he wants the world championship. And as he says that, blackout, cold front, is it going to be snow? No! The lights came back on, and MJF laughs his ass off, and Spears says, that was a good one, or whatever. And then the lights go back out, and Spears says, well, it wasn't me this time. What the And then, I know, how many times have the lights gone on and off now on this program in the last month?
Oh, a bunch of times, especially since Malachi has gotten here. There's been just nonstop lights on, lights off.
Hey, well, you know what? Even taking Malachi Black's entrance, if it's a regular scheduled part of an entrance, okay, I'll buy it. But now it's just, well, when we can't figure anything else out, the lights will go out. Now they're doing ribs where the lights go out, but it's the fucking heel in the ring that did it to jack the people off. But then the lights go out and the heel didn't do it. And then the lights come back on. And, well, no, I'm sorry. On the blackout, then the black and white footage came up of a stage in what looked like it looked like a storage room, but they were trying to make it look like a small nightclub or something. There's people around the stage standing. You can see them. And there's a crowd there, and there's a guy on stage in an MJF mask and some guy with a microphone. And Darby Allin comes on stage and drop kicks and choke slams the guy dressed as MJF on this footage. And then we go back to the ring, and Sting is in the ring and beats up Spears and Wardlow because MJF has bailed to the floor. But wouldn't you know who won the pony? Of the four sides of the ring that MJF picked to bail out on at random when he saw this, this attack about to happen, and of the 25, well, it depends on your setup, either 20 or 24 seats in each of the front rows, MJF just happened to be standing right in front of a guy dressed as the Invisible Man that unveiled himself on camera to be Darby Allin. What incredible bad luck that MJF had. And then...
But what incredible luck the Invisible Man had. He's visible again.
He's visible again. And then MJF runs off, and Darby Allin gets in the ring and hits Wardlow with, underneath his Invisible Man trench coat, he had his skateboard with thumbtacks on it. Everybody has a skateboard with thumbtacks on it. I mean, that's standard equipment, right? And he hits Wardlow across the back with a skateboard with thumbtacks on it. And then he grabs the microphone, and MJF is waiting in the aisleway for this big promo, and Darby Allin says, "Hey, Max, full gear." And that's it. So he's more verbose than ever, is Darby Allin. He said 4 words It was a good match because MJF got over. Boom. It's a good promo because MJF was saying it. I don't know about the blackouts or that's multiple times per show. I like that Darby actually spoke like he had some bass in his voice, even if it's only 4 words. But everything else was fairly serious, but at the same time, the Darby and the Invisible Man outfit was so convenient, and a skateboard with thumbtacks on it, isn't that just fucking stupid?
Yeah, what would be more Darby?
Well, I guess you're right.
I mean, I have no problem with him doing that if we didn't see thumbtacks at various other points throughout the year. I like this, and I congratulate Darby for giving up the cloak of invisibility. But, I got a little bit of a kick out of him being dressed like the Invisible Man in the outfit and revealing himself. Look, he's not going to do the fired up promo, yelling at him. And if he can't do it, don't have him do it. Just have him say 4 words. It works for him. He's never lost anything with those fans for doing brief promos or not saying anything. And he's always intense. He's the one guy you never see laughing or goofing around or being silly. Everything he does, he acts like it's serious. I'm still looking forward to this match. I thought they should have kept Darby off TV until the match, but I was okay with most of this until the thumbtacks. I'm not crazy about that. But I like this. I like MJF getting the quick win. I like the mic work. And I like the beginning of the show. Punkfish, quick Malachi interview, MJF squash, angle with Darby and Sting. Good opening to the show.
Not bad so far, but we'll get there. The TV Championship on the line with Sammy Guevara and the other Page. And the stipulations on let me see if I can get this correct. The way they've set this up over the past few weeks, and apparently either Dan Lambert and America's Top Team didn't want to go all the way from Florida to Boston, or they had a wedding to go to or whatever, but Lambert and them weren't there. But if Sammy wins, then not only does he retain the TNT TV title, but he gets to pick 3 of the members of American Top Team to team up with Scorpio Sky and the other Page in a 10-man tag match at Full Gear against, the Dinner Circle. But if Sammy loses, not only does he lose the title, but he leaves the Dinner Circle and therefore cannot be in the 10-man tag at the pay-per-view. Did I summarize that correctly?
I think so. It is confusing.
Okay, well, what's not confusing is, are they going to have a different match than they always do? And the answer is no. A jump start. Immediately they fight to the floor with dive. They fought behind the timekeeper's table and used some chairs. Excrement said, well, the bell hasn't even rung. But when the jump start happened in the ring, I heard a quick ding ding. Whether the referee signaled for it or not, I think the timekeeper thought, well, they're fighting, so we should ring the bell, which he would have been correct, but that wasn't the story. Because then they had to bounce each other off the barricades some more and finally got in the ring, and then the ref rang the bell officially. And then I got distracted. And I like Sammy Guevara. I think he's a great babyface. He has incredible fire to him. He's so athletic. He had that slappable little face as a heel, but now that he's a babyface and he has so much fire and piss and vinegar to him, I see why the people get with him. I didn't want to watch this because I don't care, as I've mentioned, if the other Page reanimates the corpse of Luthez and stretches him in his own fucking step over toe hold crossface. This fucking jack off is one of these clown show pretend wrestlers, and he didn't wrestle the sex toy or the small grade school children. He just wrestled himself on pay-per-view. So fuck him. And they did a bunch of shit that they probably should have sold a lot longer than they did. And then finally, Sammy Guevara won. What did I miss in the match? I know you probably liked it. You like Sammy. You even like the other Page.
I actually wasn't crazy about this match. Like you said, whatever match in my head I thought it would be, that's exactly what it was. And Sammy looks like he's putting on some size. That's a good thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looked like he's a little bigger than we've seen him. And it's not about Paige and it's not about Sammy. It's about this whole Inner Circle Dan Lambert feud. I don't like any of this, and it turned me off to the match. I didn't really enjoy it too much.
Well, afterwards, of course, there has to be heat afterwards. The afterbirth, as they say. You know, somebody got on me, so why do you say that all the time? I said, that's the fucking term. Oh, because that's another one of the old wrestling terms that nobody uses anymore because they're too busy pretending to be wrestlers to learn what wrestlers actually did or said.
Did you see PETA just complained about baseball using the term bullpen?
I heard that, that's what gives...
That's where it gets stupid.
That's what gives animal lovers a bad name. That's what gives liberals a bad name when somebody just goes way too far. Because it's been long enough now in the fucking baseball business that they've called it a bullpen that nobody even knows that's also the actual pen where the bulls are in before they get killed. And as long as there's no killing of animals involved with the baseball game, I would think you can use the term. But if instead of worrying about that, maybe they all ought to each dig in their pocket and send an extra $500 to animal charities instead of worrying about the baseball business. Anyway.
I like that they even had a suggestion that was terrible. Instead of bullpen, call it the arm barn.
I don't know what that means.
Well, they're pitchers. They use their arms. Instead of bullpen, arm barn.
Yeah. Well, maybe Pottery Barn then could sue them over that. And besides that, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were members of the mighty Marvel bullpen.
Yeah, it's a word that no one in the world is offended by, and someone all of a sudden is like, you should be. You should be, and here's why. Those poor bulls 200 years ago.
Well,
what?
I got some words that you can be offended by, and here they are. Chris Jericho came out and did a promo.
Ugh.
Because, of course, after Sammy won, the heels had to get on him, and then here comes the entire dinner circle to make the save. And Jericho cuts the promo. The 10-man tag team match at Full Gear between America's Top Team and the dinner circle will now be a Minneapolis street fight. Now it's just whatever town we're in, we're going to have the street fight. No disqualification. Lazy booking. A big 10-man mess where they can do whatever they want, and they didn't even announce who Sammy picked. They're not going to announce that till next week, the three members of the team. And then Jericho recited Aerosmith.
Nothing but cheap pops. He's so lame. He's the lamest fucking wrestler.
Tony Schiavone was in the back. Tony is now officially the only person doing interviews. So it's disorienting. You would think at some point, as I mentioned last week, I think he'd be out of breath, right? Because he's always there at the desk when they go to the desk, but yet he was just in the back before the break, or he had to run back. Oh my God. They ought to get him one of those fucking hover rounds or something. So he's going to wear himself out. He was with Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston. And they've got a match in the tournament. Are they literally going to send Bryan Danielson all the way through to the finals of this tournament without him actually wrestling one legitimate heel in the entire fucking thing?
I think so, and then I think they're going to turn Moxley, maybe.
Well, I hope to God, because he turned quite a while back. As Aunt Lola would say, yeah, them tomatoes, I left them out too long, and they've plumb turned. He turned for me quite a while back. Anyway, they did a good promo for both guys, and Kingston's like, I take Zoloff to keep from flipping out, and I get angry about it, and I'm going to take it out on you, and he walks off, right? And then the only problem was, after he'd walked off, Bryan has to fire up and do a promo, but then he starts talking to the camera like he's talking to Kingston. But we just saw Kingston exit stage right, so it was a little disorienting there. I would have directed some of my promo after where Eddie had walked off at and then opened it up for the rest of the world. But nevertheless, good promo. Bryan Danielson fired up a little bit. Then Tony The next thing we saw was with the Lucha Brothers and Alex. And Penthouse spoke Spanish, and Felix tried to speak English, and then Alex, our boy, cut a good wrestling promo. But God, he's such a fucking natural heel, and they put him in a position of being a babyface. I just don't understand this. But anyway, Alex, he has a heel face, he has a heel delivery, and condescending, sneerish. I love this guy. I wish he could manage everybody. Especially so we'd see somebody else instead of the Lucha Brothers. But you know what the problem was with this, Brian?
What's that?
Remember, we've said, I think it was last week, brilliant formatting. CM Punk ran in and made a save, and they were able to play the music and everything at the top of the hour. At the top of the hour in this program, they were in a pre-tape with Alex cutting a promo and then went to a Serena Deeb entrance. And we love Serena Deeb, and we love Alex. But that's not the point of top of the hour star power hooking people that are switching by. That's, well, we're just in the middle of a show. So then they had the TBS Championship Tournament, which, as we now know, is going to be all girls, with Serena Deeb versus Hikaru Shida. And do you want to know what I wrote as soon as I saw what this match was going to be?
I hope. I don't even want to guess. I hope you gave this a chance. What did you write?
I wrote, there is no way that one of Twinkle Toes' Japanese fetish objects is getting beat twice in a row, and I'm going to be pissed if they beat Serena Deeb, and I've watched the whole thing, so I'm going to save myself the aggravation. I'm going to skip ahead, and if Serena Deeb goes over, I'll back up and watch it. And I didn't have to back up and watch it. Jesus H. Christ. They've just switched her heel. They've just given her a new attitude. And then the girl carrying the trophy for the first girl to get 50 wins in AEW beats Serena Deeb. Until they get old Harpo under control with his goofy impulses and his inclination to push all of these interchangeable Japanese outlaw mud show girls, it's going to be bleh. And this is an example of it. They've got Serena Deeb, one of the best female wrestlers in the ring in the business. She also can speak English. And she also has high-level experience working in the biggest company in the world and all over the world. But yet, the fucking girl in the genie outfit that has her little 50-win trophy, she's more important. Because guess who she's messing around with? Harpo McFingerfuck. So, but at least after that Shida beat Serena, then Serena gets a chair. Of course, there has to be an afterbirth. And she beat the shit out of Hikaru Shida's leg. Referee Aubrey starts waving for help, and here comes the referees. At least they're trying. We've said this before, right? But 4 male referees and Jerry Lynn, retired wrestling great, hit the ring and ask the 120-pound girl, please let go, instead of just taking her off the girl.
Well, one of the referees pushed her.
Well, actually, and that was the wrong, because she had the single leg crab on. So don't push the girl while she's got the single leg crab on the other girl. Somebody might get their leg broken, but they should have pulled her off. But anyway, at least they're trying. But oh no, I didn't give this a chance. I don't want to see Hikaru Shida. And it's, a lot of people say, well, he's so racist against the Japanese people. No, I'm not. I love Japanese people. Masahori, our old fan, I love him. I've been a big fan all my life of Antonio Inoki, Tatsumi Fujinami, Tojo Yamamoto. I like Japanese people. I just don't like 100-pound Japanese schoolgirls dressed in lace pretending to be wrestlers on every wrestling program in the world. Just because some basement-dwelling virginal subculture thinks that if you're a female and you reside in the country of Japan, you're automatically one of the best wrestlers in the world. It's gotten old fast. Riho! And I called it 2 years ago, and nothing has changed. Twinkle Toes thinks that everybody likes that Japanese shit that basically a fucking nerd like he is. And he doesn't think that people would rather see top-level talent, male or female, instead of goofy outlaw guys, male and female, knock it to fuck off, that work mud shows in Japan, wrestling in people's apartments in front of no people. Fuck. So it's not a situation where I don't like Japanese people. It's a situation where I don't like tiny, minute Japanese schoolgirls being paraded around as professional wrestlers.
And Shida isn't that tiny. She wasn't smaller than Serena Deeb. So if you want to make that statement about Riho, you're being fair, but they're not all interchangeable. Shida is the same size as almost every other sizable woman in that division.
Well, then they ought to fucking cut down on all the pretenders so that the real ones could shine through, because they're all interchangeable to me.
I wish you had given us a chance. This was the best match of the night. This was an excellent match. Despite the fact that Shida wins, it doesn't take anything away from this feud because of the post-match thing.
I wish you'd take something away from the feud. I wish you would take the feud away. Why do I want to see Serena Deeb wrestling Hikaru Shida?
Who else do you want to see her working? Quite frankly, in AEW, Shida's more marketable than Serena Deeb right now. She's a bigger star there. They had a good match. Who else is Serena Deeb going to work with and go over? This was a good match. It was match 2 of a program, so I think match 2. Match 2 of a program so far. They've already established that she cost her the 50th win. Now she got her 50th win over her, and there was a post-match beatdown. You didn't watch it, but I'm telling you, I love this match. I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope they don't go garbage. I hope they can just do them working, because them giving Serena Deeb the woman of 1,000 holds, it's true. And maybe she has a little more personality than Dean Malenko, quite frankly. But she's really good in there, and this was
I'll agree with you there, and it's not like that would have been a stretch.
And this was a really good, despite it being Shida and your feelings about Shida, this was a good, hard-hitting, physical match that didn't insult you. If you can get it past it being Shida, I understand your issues. This was, I think, the best match of the night, and this was just a fantastic match. And I've defended Shida enough. Let me just say, Serena Deeb, I've been so impressed with her since she first showed up in AEW, only because I didn't really follow her on the indies or whatever she was doing the last few years. I thought she was just training people. But since she showed up in AEW, she has been a breath of fresh air. She may be the single best in-ring mechanic of all the women's wrestlers in the entire business.
All that time she spent around Rip Rogers.
She is just solid in there. Everything she does looks great. I enjoyed this match thoroughly. This may have been my favorite match with her in AEW. This was a great match, I thought. And I encourage you, please, unless they do no DQ or something, please give the next match a chance if they do.
All right. Match. If they don't use furniture.
That's if they don't go no DQ, yes.
But they need to keep Serena Deeb strong, because in 6 weeks or so, Charlotte Flair and Serena Deeb, that would be fucking money. I'm just telling you. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever.
That's the question of, you brought Charlotte Flair in, or are you going to have Ashley Flair come in? Who is the money program to put her with? And do you do that right away? What do you do with her?
Boy, I'll tell you what, her and Britt Baker would be interesting in the ring.
The promos would be interesting.
Would be interesting, and Britt Baker would suddenly become the most beloved individual in the world.
She kind of is already.
Well, speaking of beloved people, Lio Rush and Dante Martin were next. Bad news. Severe bad news here. Mike Sydal has been injured. So the tag team match that they had promised for this Friday with Dante and Leo against Matt and Mike instead is going to be a single with Dante against Matt Sydal. Lio Rush did all the talking here. Dante Martin's facials. He looks like a man who's just had those shock treatments they used to give mental patients in the 50s.
He looks traumatized.
He's traumatized. He's just, I don't know how to explain why he's just standing there, just, anyway, there you go. So Leo's doing all the talking there, but he's going to show people what's what. And then, okay, Moxley, are they turning Moxley heel? I mean, it's hard to tell because he's always wrestled the same way. No, there's no change in his in-ring because there's no rule that he doesn't break instantly to begin with. And this was the same Moxley match as always, except you're just getting the idea that he's even being a bigger prick. But it's against 10. What's the guy's name that's 10 in the Dark Order?
Preston Vance.
Okay. So here comes Moxley from the parking lot, jump starts it. They go to the floor. He rips 10's mask open. The job guy got color, and I didn't see anything that looks like, because he ripped the mask open first. So that's generally that's your indicator there. When a mask guy is going to get juice, the mask rips first. I didn't see particularly what he did to him that would have instigated this blood, but is Moxley the Sheik? Or he gets juice on job guys? Or is this they're switching him heel? Because that's still kind of Moxley's gimmick. He just beats people up and then 1, 2, 3, and he immediately stalks out of the arena. So I don't know, but it's not like they can change anything about his wrestling because he has the same matches regardless. And whether he's wrestling a babyface or a heel, it's the same thing all the time. So it would help if they would switch him because let's face it, now that Punk and Danielson are in front of him, and now that I'm sure Jericho's in front of him with these people, don't you think? As far as popularity?
I do feel like his popularity has come down, but also, and again, I'm not a fan of Moxley, he really hasn't been used very well, considering how they used him previously for the last, little while. He was coming out with Eddie Kingston as his little buddy. He was in a few random 6-man matches. Hasn't really done much. Had the New Japan stuff that was more of a focus on TV than AEW stuff. It seemed to me like he was going heel. Seemed to me like he was behaving more like a heel. It seemed like he pushed a few fans when he was going to the ring and coming back from the ring. And I think it probably makes sense, turning him heel. And boy, there's some kind of noise outside. I don't know what the fuck that is. Maybe it's Moxley.
I was about to say it's Moxley in his plumbing truck.
Someone
did you see stopped up? Yes, I saw the tweet. Somebody tweeted the picture of a truck that said Moxley Plumbing on it. And then somebody tweeted a picture of Moxley saying in front of a fucking kitchen with a guy under the fucking sink and said, well, the problem was your flange was broken. But anyway, that was that. It was what it was.
And I think right now he would make more sense as a heel considering who else is on the roster, and it gives him fresh opponents like Danielson, like a CM Punk down the road, like various other people he hasn't wrestled yet.
But then if he turns heel, he'll probably start following the rules.
That would be the ultimate. Sense. That would be the ultimate heel turn. Come to the ring in a suit, collar and elbow tie up, headlock. Abdominal stretch or two. Yeah, that'd be good.
Maybe an atomic noogie. Tony Schiavone, we haven't heard from him in a while. He was back with FTR and Tully Blanchard. And according to Tully, they've hit the reset button. Yeah, well, only a year and a half after they come into the company. I wish there was a reset button on the Booker of the Year. Because again, if we could have taken what they've done with FTR over the last 6 weeks and made that their first 6 weeks in the company, if we could take what MJF has done for the last couple of months and make that his first couple of months in the company. But anyway, the reset button, and they did a good promo.
And you know what? You and I kind of went back and forth about this a few weeks ago where I said, you know what? It looks like they're trying to do something new with them. And you said, look what they did for the last year and a half, and you weren't wrong. But since that time, they're doing something with them, and they're getting promo time all of a sudden. People are discovering they can talk. I don't know what Tully does. Maybe we'll figure that out in one of these promos one of these days. But they're getting matches. They got the AAA tag titles. Who knows if they're going to get the AEW tag titles? I could see that possibly happening.
Oh, they better, for fuck's sake.
It seems like it. And as much as you want them to get a win back over the Bucks, it seems like the Bucks are very happy in their own little world doing their own thing. Let that continue.
No.
Let's get the Briscoes. Let's get FTR against some other tag teams.
Yeah, I don't want to see them in the ring with the Hardley Boys again, because then we'd be back to where we started from, which would be shit. Because they'll have a better match with the Hardley Boys than anybody else will have with the Hardley Boys, but the Hardley Boys will have to do their stuff too, which makes FTR look bad because it's phony.
And they'll have to have Rick Knox as the referee.
Oh, God. You know, I understand that everybody has to make a living, right? And maybe it's not Rick Knox's fault that he's being paid for something that he has absolutely no ability to do, but it's not like he would starve. I guarantee you, if Rick Knox was not a professional wrestling referee and not being paid by AEW, he could get hired on tomorrow by any number of medical schools to fucking contribute various body parts to their anatomy classes.
I was going to say, if Bill and Ted go on the road, he could be the Grim Reaper.
Well, no, but no, think of it. He doesn't need to be the star of the show. He needs to be a bit player. That's what I'm thinking. Since he's already a reanimated corpse, he looks horrible. He has no blood in his body. He has no hair follicles that are working. He's like one of those Invasion of the Body Snatchers pods that didn't grow all the way before they got to it and didn't have all the hair and the fine fucking details on the face. So certainly they could take him around to various medical schools and just take like a spleen here or a kidney there or a larynx there, and he could contribute body parts to medical schools. He could probably be employed for a year and a half that way, easy.
Yeah, I don't know. Where's Rick? Oh, he was giving up his larynx today.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so here came Cody Rhodes. And the fans in Boston were booing the shit out of him. And he said, I hear you. I hear you. And then he also said, I hear old managers shouting at clouds. Brian, you've known me now for over 25 years. Have you ever heard me yell at a cloud?
I have not witnessed that in person, no.
No. Because I'm not mad at the clouds. Because the clouds are where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm not mad at them. I'm yelling at the wrestlers because the wrestlers in AEW are not where they're supposed to be, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So that's why I yell at them. I don't know whether Cody really took offense with the things that I said or whether he got that line in to placate Brandy. I'm sure.
You know he workshopped that line. You just know he tried different variations of it. I'm not talking about those 80s managers with glasses and tennis. Nah, that won't work. You know he workshopped it and talked to Arn and talked to Tony and talked to everyone he could until he finally felt like he had something that worked.
I think Brandy said, hey, knock Cornette, because he said mean things about me. But anyway, the point is, this promo, he spent the entire promo, he's not going to take the easy way out. What he was doing here was trying to somehow tell the fans that he knows they're booing him, and he's going to address the root reasons why, and he's trying to talk him out of it by kind of knocking himself and saying that his brother's more talented and he couldn't live up to his dad and blah, blah, blah. I wrote, he's talking in circles. You wouldn't, unless you live your life studying every bit of backstage news about AEW and why the fans are booing Cody and what all is going on, you would have had no idea what he was talking about. It was another artistic rendition of a promo. It was I said to you before we went on the air, I said the head of the nail could have had nitroglycerin on it and he would have been safe because he beat all around it, but he never hit the nail on the head. And then finally he said, I will not turn. So now he's talking on the wrestling program to the fans using smart terminology, saying that he will not be a phony bad guy. So by extension of this, that means he's now a phony good guy. I won't turn and play another part. So I'll just play the part that I'm playing now. He apologized to everybody for going Hollywood. And he apologized to a bunch and shook Arn's hand and blah, blah, blah. But this is all about telling everybody I'm a fake wrestler playing a part. The reality show. The I will not turn. The whole 9 yards is not only just exposing the fourth wall, but it's bulldozing it down and just talking smart to everybody. And if that's phony, everything else is phony too. And I'm just gobsmacked that, you know what, I'm not going to take the easy way out. Are you fucking ribbon? It's not easy being a heel. Healing ain't easy. But when the people hate your guts and they're booing you, why the fuck would you not want to do that? We tell switch Roman Reigns for 5 years before they did. Now look at him, right? So why would you not want to be? He could draw money as a heel because the people are predisposed not to like him, just like you said. Him and his social climbing wife, if they backstabbed Arn Anderson and carried him out on a stretcher and then got into something with CM Punk, that would draw pay-per-view money. They might actually have a heel that has legitimate heat instead of one that's cheered out of the building for beating up one of their top baby faces. What did you think of this interview, Mr. Last?
It was preposterous. I mean, again, you know this is a guy that rehearses everything he says, overthinks everything he says. So you know this was a line, the one about you, and this whole thing that was rehearsed and thought about. I'm sure he's been trying to come up with a way to justify. I get it. I like that. The commiserating, Cody. I get why you hate me. Because I went Hollywood. You didn't go Hollywood. You went to fucking Atlanta. You didn't go Hollywood. You were yourself, and it was captured on film. That's where you went. And I think everyone has seen everyone else's commitment. You could say what you want about the Bucks and Omega, and we all certainly have problems with them. They're committed to AEW. They're there. They're committed to being what they tried to be in Ring of Honor and New Japan and everything else. Cody comes across to fans, and quite frankly, to wrestlers in that locker room, as someone who looks at wrestling as a means to an end. Someone who, his heart was never in wrestling. I don't care what he says in any of these promos. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a celebrity. And it's more about that. And now he's going to come back, and if they truly do this, where they force him to stay a babyface while he's being booed everywhere, which is interesting considering he's the guy who said that we're not going to go with those boring old tropes like heels and babyfaces. Then what do you have? Then what is Cody's true value there? Because quite frankly, right now in AEW, if you took Cody and Brandy out of the picture, they don't lose any viewers. They don't lose any fans. Nothing. This benefits Cody more than them.
You know why? Because if you're not a babyface and you're not a heel, you know what you are? You're bleh. You're nothing. If people do not have a strong like or a strong dislike for you, one or the other, then you are useless in the wrestling business. That's why there are baby faces and heels, and that's why, try as they want, all these gloriosity fucking seeking social climbers who think that we've moved past baby faces and heels. No, we haven't. And we never will. The human race will never move past baby faces and heels. Because you want to see an asshole get the shit kicked out of him, and you want to see somebody you like do the kicking of the shit. And that's it.
And as far as he won't turn and he's not going to do this and that, you got to remember, the Young Bucks Omega fans, who were the original base of AEW, supported Cody because he aligned himself with them. And without that, they wouldn't have. And now, there's no reason to cheer Cody. He's a babyface without any reason to be likable. Because he doesn't come across as likable. You like Arn? You don't like Cody. And now he's going to refuse to be a heel. It's very similar. I mean, he has a lot of traits of his dad. I hate to say it. His worst traits.
Yeah.
A lot of Dusty's worst traits you see in Cody, and he's going to keep being booed. And they took all it seemed like by the end of this, the focus was on Pac, which I was okay with.
Well, after the interview was over with, or at least Cody's portion of the interview, suddenly here comes Andre Olio. And he's coming down the aisle. And he mumbled his way to the ring with the microphone. Have you noticed he sounds like Hans Conried in a 60s TV sitcom?
I haven't noticed.
Just and he's got the assistant with him who never does anything or says anything. And now his assistant is still carrying the laptop, but is wearing a neck brace because he got dropped on his head last week. So all of the stooges and assistants are just there for pure comedy. And Andre gets in the ring and tells Cody he's going to make him his, I swear to God, little beach. And as soon as he said little beach, or Lido Beach, again with a blackout, the lights go off again. And the lights come back on, and Malachi Black is in the ring, and he mists Cody, and he misses Cody. He misses with the mist. The mist missed. Again, it's black mist. You can see it on the guy's face. And you can see when it's not on the guy's face. And you can see Cody at the end of he knew at the end of this segment, he's trying to sell his face, but he could see that there was no mist on his face. And the heels start working over Cody and Arn, and here comes Pac and saves him and clears the ring or whatever. But now do we have Pac and Cody against Malachi Black and Andre Olio? That'll be a real rip snorter.
It seems like that, and I thought Pac was great here. That shot of him at the end, just giving the middle finger. He has the best facial expressions. He looks like a little bastard. He is fantastic.
He's ripped. I don't know why he tries to come off the top rope as much as with a physique like that. His work seems good. The only flaw in his game is every time he goes to the top rope and tries to do one of those quadruple flipping things off the top, he's up there forever trying to get his balance. But as far as his physique, his facials, he's got the accent. He does a pretty good promo. He looks like a badass. If he didn't try to constantly do flips and flying shit, you could buy this guy as a real ass kicker. And I don't like the way he's been booked, but that's a blanket statement that you could make about this entire company and everybody in it. But again, he was a babyface. He was a heel. I know the pandemic and he's foreign, so he was here and he was gone. But even when he was around regularly, since they've started using him, you couldn't keep track. 1 week he's wrestling a heel, 1 week he's wrestling a babyface, or vice versa. It's impossible to determine. He was part of a group called Death Triangle, who then became babyfaces. So my guy in the Bermuda Triangle has replaced Walt Disney World as a fun vacation family spot. But yeah, there's talent. There's talent in a lot of these guys underneath there somewhere.
Hey, if I could say just a couple more things about the Cody promo.
I wish you would.
Because I saw a couple people compare it to Cena. How, Cena would get booed even though he was the babyface. It's not a fair comparison because Cena was a fucking star.
Yeah.
Much bigger than Cody. And he meant much more to that company than Cody means to AEW. Cody risks being Jeff Jarrett in TNA to every wrestling fan who wasn't in Nashville in that building. Where he may not be the world champion or pushes the world champion, but he's being pushed and used in a way that fans don't accept. So the next few months will be very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. And as far as, managers who yell at clouds, if we're measuring things based on clouds, then I'd like to know how many clouds you're yelling at, because more people will listen to this than watch your stupid reality show, buddy. So suck on that.
I didn't want to be the one to mention the disparity in some of those numbers, but anyway.
Just some guy yelling at clouds like no one's listening. More people will hear this right here than watched any episode of your show, Cody. Just remember that.
I will say one, and you say Jeff Jarrett and TNA. Again, I have got to just take issue with a lot of people say, well, why was Jeff pushing himself? Because he was just,
I know why he was.
Well, especially in the early days of TNA. And honestly, through the time that they picked up Kurt Angle and a few of those acquisitions, Jeff Jarrett was the best worker in the company, the best in-ring worker. He knew he wasn't going to hold himself up. He knew he wasn't going to walk out on himself. He knew he wasn't going to refuse to do jobs to other people to himself. He was the best in-ring worker and the most experienced, and he had a name from national television. So yes, he's going to push himself over, especially some of the early TNA names. But then when Sting and Kurt Angle and et cetera, came in, then you saw him back up and work with, to this day, the best TNA match that I ever saw was Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle. And I believe, oh, God damn it, it was a location pay-per-view, and I never can remember. Was it the one we did in Charlotte? I think it was. It wasn't Atlanta, it was Charlotte. Samoa Joe and Angle was the best drawing pay-per-view they ever did, and it also was a very memorable match, but the best just regular pro wrestling match that I ever saw in TNA was Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle. And so, yeah, he pushed himself, but there's reasons for that in a company of that size. With Dusty and Crockett in the 80s, it was a little more egregious. The talent was so deep, and there were so many. And he had already had his run, and it could have been curtailed a little bit sooner. But, Jeff, I don't blame him for what he did in TNA. Anyway.
Well, I will, but
you can. Yeah. And that way we've got it all covered.
That's right.
Speaking of covering everything, we've saved the worst for last. This actually, it wasn't a bad program, as you said. Things were, the stupidity was kept to a minimum. There was a couple good matches. There was some good promos, little angle business going on. And then they decided, let's just take a shit on everything for the last 15, 20 minutes of the show. Here comes the Dork Order. All the names that are in the Dork Order, whoever they are. If you know them, you know them. If you don't, I didn't write them down. I don't care. But they were all dressed as Bambi or as cowboys or a horse or fucking whatever. It was ridiculous before we even got to the super elite of the Twinkle Toes, Hardly Boys, Adam Cole contingent, who were all dressed as the Ghostbusters. And they come down to the ring, and the Hardly Boys are making the faces and walking funny. And there's Michael knock it the fuck off in a sumo suit with a baby bonnet on. And the Dork Order jobber that looks like Little Brutus, Google it, folks, is the one that wrestled in the Bambi costume. And unfortunately, Adam Cole was going along with this horseshit wholeheartedly. And they didn't have a match, so there's no sense in trying to critique the work or describe what happened. It was all a chance for all of them. What was it, an 8-man or a 10-man with all the goofs running around the ring? You couldn't tell, but it was a chance for them all to fucking play with their friends and do a Saturday Night Live sketch and make mockery of wrestling. This was a wrestling parody segment. The things that people used to do and the things that people used to say, people that didn't like wrestling, that wanted to knock wrestling, hated wrestling, wanted to browbeat you if you were even a wrestling fan, the things that they would say about wrestling and wrestlers is everything that these guys do in the middle of a match. Funny, hokey, stupid, fake, choreographed, contrived silliness. Excrement. At one point, his quote was, "Evil Uno splashed the proton pack." And poor Jim Ross, who, by the way, as we've mentioned, we said get well soon and best wishes to him. He just got diagnosed with skin cancer. He's got cancer on his leg, and now he's got to sit there in front of that and have to try to figure out a way to lend his voice to this. So when Excrement says, "Evil Uno splashed the proton pack," JR has to say, "Not the proton pack." He actually called them, I quote, idiots and, quote, these guys run this place, unquote, but he put it in the context of commentary so he could actually say what he really thought about these fucking jackoffs that he was having to suffer the presence of and still made it fit the commentary. That was pretty fucking slick. But however, this match was the biggest bunch of self-trained amateur backyard mud show assholes that I've ever seen assembled in one ring, pretending openly to have a parody wrestling match, not trying to make anybody believe it, not trying to make anything legitimate, just playing in costumes. The Saturday Night Live sketches from the 70s that I referred to, with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, had more professional-looking work than you saw in this thing. And in 5 years, when they do the rise and fall of AEW documentary on the cock, the question is going to be, how did a company with national cable television, a billionaire backer, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson on the roster, Jim Ross, the voice of wrestling, on the microphone, how did that company fail? All they'll have to do is show 5 minutes of footage of the Hardley Boys and old Twinkle Toes here and one interview clip of Tony Khan Adderalled out of his mind, and everybody's going to fucking understand. For about 5 minutes or so, all 8 or 10 of them, or whoever the fuck was even, did they even bother to have teams? Nobody ever tagged. They just got in and did moves to each other over and over in turn, standing there waiting for them while the corpse referee watched useless. And then they super kicked the referee. Then they did some more ridiculous choreography where they would all stand there and wait for everyone to get in the right place, and then they would jump into them with their proton packs or whatever. And the referee's, of course, still down, but there hadn't been a tag in 10 minutes. This doesn't matter anyway. A horse ran in, and they beat the horse up. Don't get mad, Peter. It was a fake horse, just like all these people are fake wrestlers. Because then once they beat the horse up, then they pulled the horse's head off of the horse's ass, and it was Brandon Cutlet, that small, bland piece of white meat, with his mouth taped up so he couldn't alert them that he wasn't the fucking, he was blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is in the ring behind us. So let's have Pie Face Jackson of the Hardley Boys. I've got a raging clue, you do? Well, let's follow that raging clue. He gets a raging clue that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in the ring behind him, and I've never said those English words in that order before, is really Adam Page instead of the horse. And he turns around with a shocked face, and there's Page as the Marshmallow Man, and he beats up the heels, and everybody hugs. And I don't know what the... I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm wrong. I admit it. And when I have misled you down the garden path, I admit that too. I apologize for endorsing young Adam Cole all this time. It's worse because the Hardley Boys and Twinkle Toes can't do this stuff right. They're not believable. They're not as believable a promo as Adam Cole. None of their work is as believable as Adam Cole. They can't do it right, so they do it this way. But Cole can talk, and he can work, and he's worked for a professional company, and he knows how to put a match together. So now apparently he's just doing this to jack off because it's easier and fun for him and his buddies. So I apologize for my banner carrying for Adam Cole now. Remember, at least it took 10 years for me to be disappointed. Remember, I liked Mance Warner the first time I saw him, and 3 months after I saw him for the very first time, he's on the internet wrestling the Invisible Man. So that wasn't a big letdown. I had to apologize for that, but it wasn't a big... But I've been promoing Adam Cole for 10 years. Since I saw him when he was 19 or 20, I told Delirious, that's a smart, mature kid. Listen to the way he cuts a promo already. Look at his work. He's going to be a star. I thought he had his shit together. He was the most serious guy in NXT, the one you always wanted to hear talk, the one you wanted to see what the fuck was going to happen with the matches. 3 weeks in this fucking lunatic asylum, and he's having parody matches with jobbers dressed as a Ghostbuster and just jacking off. I apologize to everybody. And Adam, if you hear this, I apologize. I'm sorry. We had a nice run. But I honestly thought you were more professional than this. I never dreamed that this you could have put a list of 20 or 30 guys up, and whoever it was, if you said, Cornette, which one of these is least likely to go be a fucking jack-off comedy wrestler with a bunch of idiots instead of showing his talent, I would have put Adam Cole at the bottom of that list. I see I was wrong, and I apologize.
He hangs out with a bad crowd.
Well, but
that's why I wouldn't have put him at the bottom of the list. This doesn't surprise me.
Just like the question was asked in the movie The Bad Seed. Was it heredity or environment? And I'm sorry, but you can pick the people you hang out with. And these are not the ones he ought to be hanging out with. So I will probably watch Adam Cole's single matches if he ever has any again, especially if it's against somebody else I want to see, but I'm done. I've had enough of if they can fucking trash Adam Cole, they can trash anybody. 3 weeks and he's a fucking outlaw jack off. What's next week? Is he going to take a bump for an invisible hand grenade next week? So no more of these multi-man matches with Adam Cole. The only reason I've suffered through the Hardley Boys and Twinkle Toes of the past few weeks to begin with was to see Adam Cole. I will not make that sacrifice again. You know, they say never meet your heroes. Yeah. Don't keep track of your proteges either.
This match made me miss the seriousness of Orange Cassidy. This was just embarrassing. And look, you know, I'm a little more lenient than you when it comes to funny stuff or just warm-hearted stuff around wrestling, even when it makes no sense. I'm a little more lenient than you. There was nothing that I could think of in my head that could have justified this main event. It was one of those matches that I see. Again, everyone's different. That I'm embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. If someone who I knew from outside of wrestling, who I knew from business, or someone I run into it from town, or someone from the kid's school, if they said, hey, you know, I watched that wrestling the other night. You talk about that show? I would be embarrassed. It was awful. And again, I like stupid humor, and I like the Ghostbusters. I like a lot of the things referenced here. It's just they can't do it. It comes across as just silly, and their humor is always stupid. And they're like Jericho. Everything's about the cheap pop. Everything's about the bad humor.
But everything with these assholes is about let's see how we can make fun of our own business. Let's see how we can make fun of wrestling as much as possible. Let's make it look as silly as possible. Let's make wrestling look as phony and stupid and silly as possible so that everybody wonders, why the fuck am I watching this? That's their goal. That's what they're going for. Because every time you see them, that's what they do. Let's make fun of our own business. Let's make sure that everybody knows that we're taking none of this seriously and it's all a fucking joke. And I have been warned against wishing death upon people on the internet, so I will merely say that I wish that they would all be placed in a meat grinder and ground down to small, insignificant little meat capsules that can then be distributed to various wild animals around the area.
Well, as long as you're helping the animals, I think some people.
As long as we're helping the animals. See, there's a silver lining in that.
You know, there was a lot of planning, obviously, that went into this, from getting the outfits to coming up with all these intricate spots in the middle of the match. A lot of planning, which means Tony Khan okayed this thing multiple times on the way to get here.
And when you think of the time that they could have spent actually trying to do something to make a good program instead of take the piss out of the wrestling business. I don't know what Here, is it the thing with the Bucks that they were just so bitter because nobody would book them to the level that they, in their minds, imagined that they should be at, until finally they got together with the fucking group and there was the mass hypnosis where people thought, oh shit, Bullet Club's over. Then they find out it's just the T-shirts because people thought it had something to do with guns. And by then they've hoodwinked Ring of Honor into bringing their package there. And then they hoodwink a billionaire. Are they now trying to get even with wrestling in general and with all the wrestlers that were more talented than they were by saying, we're going to make this shit look as silly and stupid and phony as possible and make everybody laugh at it? And they'll all be laughing with us instead of at us like they used to when we tried to wrestle. And when Harpo made his butt plug just fell out faces and people would laugh. Well, now we're really going to make them laugh, but we're going to make them laugh at wrestling and good wrestlers. Is that their fucking mission?
I don't know. I just think they were raised wrong.
Well, we know about that crackpot conservative family they come from, but
it's
anyway.
It's not good. I mean, the thing to me is it's just not good. Even if you like the Bucks matches or Omega matches, and I like Omega a lot more than I like the Bucks. This brand of off, I guess I should say this off brand of humor sucks. And it wasn't the thing in wrestling until Vince McMahon where Halloween meant you had to do stupid shit on your show, where you had to dress in costumes and do dumb shit. I don't remember lots of wrestling shows with that ever. So I don't know.
Remember Vince started in the late 80s with the Halloween thing and the costumes. And well, even though it wasn't Halloween at WrestleMania because it was Caesar's Palace, JR had to wear the toga.
Yeah.
And then Halloween Havoc came up with WCW. I think the first one was in 89.
Yeah. And by 1990, they had makeup for Paul Lee, and they went pumpkins around and all sorts of things.
I was about to say, by 1990, we went to Chicago. Paul Lee got the Dracula makeup. Paul Lee loved to stand in line at the makeup chair. They would try to get me to put makeup on. When I was announcing, I'd go, fuck you. I don't want that shit on my face. They know what I look like, and it ain't going to change now. And every once in a while, I'd let them put some powder on me so they could be done with it, and then I'd wipe it off. But Paulie loved the makeup, and I guess I understand why, because look at him now. But he was the vampire that night, and I think Missy Hyatt was a witch, and that's where Ole wanted the Southern boys to put the pumpkin on my head.
Was Shivani the Phantom of the Opera? Or am
Shivani was the
wrong?
Phantom of the... what? No, JR was the Phantom of the Opera.
That's right.
JR was the Phantom of the Opera. And I had the verbal ability, by the way, say this may be Halloween Havoc, but I ain't going to fucking let the baby faces put a pumpkin on my head and run around like a jack-o'-lantern with a pumpkin on my head, Ole, because that's too funny and silly. And he said, wow, that's what Nick Goulas would have done, because he hated Tennessee wrestling. I said, there's a difference. Nick Goulas drew money. We ain't drawing any. We're getting beat in a fucking preliminary match. Then the guys that we're in a program with are going to get beat later on in another preliminary match.
The booking there was great.
Yeah, and you ain't having them there ain't going to be putting a pumpkin on my head. I'm not going to run around looking like an idiot. He was pissed, and I didn't care, because 3 days later, we'd be done.
Can you imagine if that would have been the last image of you on WCW TV and then you were done?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why that wasn't the last image of me on WCW TV. Because I was figuring we were fixing to be done, and I couldn't wait.
One more thing I'll say about this match. It's disappointing. You know, Adam Page came back and did that promo, which was pretty good. And then last week it was a step back because all of a sudden he's drinking again and hanging out with the Dork Order.
Yeah.
It's a big moment for him to confront Omega or anyone in the Elite. It's a big deal.
And he did it dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So, and here's the thing for the footage of the package.
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
For the footage of the package. Well, here's the number one contender, the top babyface in AEW, beating Twinkle Toes or whatever the fuck. And he's also dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. In 3 years, people are going to look at that and go, what the fuck was going on? If it's available for viewing in 3 years. Yeah, and Paige's interview was fantastic. It wasn't just very good, it was fantastic. That's what he should have been. He was a main event guy. That's what he should have been all along. And then the next week, he's back to a beer in his hand talking to the job guys. And the next week, he's dressed as the fucking Marshmallow. So you can't count on anything here. One step forward, 14 back. It's like they take a step up the hill and then fall ass over tea kettle all the way down to the bottom. And then their fucking suitcase lands on their head. Anyway, that was this week's wrestling.